It's Moscow, 1956. 200 of the Soviet Union's elite politicians, military officers, and KGB officials have all gathered in one auditorium. On the stage, there is a small team of technicians who are making final adjustments to a strange-looking machine. The machine is sitting on a wooden table. It's a metal box the size of a small suitcase with vacuum tubes coming out and dials gleaming on its front panel. Despite the ordinary-looking machine, you can feel the excitement in the air. The lead scientist nods to its assistant. A switch is flipped. The device awakens with a soft and almost imperceptible hum. There is a rhythmic pulse of light that begins to emanate from its core. 30 seconds pass, and then something extraordinary happens. The military men who are trained to remain vigilant, they begin to soften. Their rigid postures melt away, and the government officials who were moments ago checking their watches impatiently, they're now staring vacantly forward, and their eyes are completely unfocused, as if they have all been hypnotized. 5 minutes later, there is a quiet that blankets the entire auditorium. The heads are nodding, the eyelids are fluttering and closing, and the Soviet Union's most disciplined minds, surrender as if to an invisible force. They're slumping in their seats as if they are drugged. Many now sound asleep. The scientist at the podium, standing just beyond the device's field, surveys his handiwork. In minutes, this machine has rendered the most powerful men in the Soviet apparatus completely docile, without a single word or drug. This wasn't just science fiction or a theatrical illusion. This was the first ever demonstration of the Soviet Lida machine, and we only came to know about it through actually the declassified CIA documents. So what exactly was Lida machine, and how did it came to be? In Soviet documentation, Lida was developed by scientists in Armenia led by El Rabishev as a distant pulse treating apparatus. Its stated purpose was treating various neuropsychic and somatic disorders without pharmaceuticals. The timing here is crucial to understand. The post-war Soviet Union faced critical shortages of psychiatric medications. Soviet authorities desperately needed ways to treat conditions like insomnia and psychosis and hypertension without relying on Western drug imports. Lida offered a solution, an electronic sedative that could be manufactured domestically using existing radio technology. But of course, since this was Cold War, there was another agenda there as well. The Cold War at that time was in its most paranoid phase, and both superpowers were actually racing to develop mind control techniques. While the CIA was pursuing its notorious MK Ultra program, dosing subjects with LSD and other psychoactive compounds, Soviet scientists were actually going in a different direction. They were using electromagnetic fields to directly hack the brain's operating system, hence Lida. Lida's power came from exploiting a neurological phenomenon called brainwave entrainment, the brain's tendency to synchronize its electrical patterns with external rhythmic stimuli. To explain to you, think of your brain as a radio, which is constantly tuning to different stations. When you are alert and focused, it plays fast beta waves between 13 to 30 hertz, like rock music. When you are relaxed, it shifts to alpha waves between 8 to 13 hertz, more like smooth jazz. As you drift towards sleep, theta waves between 4 to 8 hertz take over, which is almost like a gentle lullaby. In deep sleep, there are slow delta waves between 0.5 to 4 hertz, like the deep, slow beats of an ambient music. Lida was designed to hijack these neural frequencies. By bombarding the brain with precisely calibrated rhythms, it forced neurons to abandon their natural patterns and march to its artificial beat. This is actually a modern phenomenon. Modern neuroscientists call this frequency following response. And it's not really pseudoscience. Your brain naturally synchronizes with strong external stimuli. It's why strobe lights can actually trigger seizures in some individuals, and why shamanic drumming can induce trance states. Perhaps the most surprising twist in the Lida story is that the Soviet technology received US patent in 1973, at the height of Cold War, when technological secrets were guarded like nuclear codes. Within the documentation lies a remarkable revelation. In Soviet Union, Lida actually underwent extensive clinical testing on almost 300 patients, which included 100 children as young as 4 years old. I mean, these weren't just healthy volunteers, but patients actually suffering from insomnia and anxiety and depression and various neurological conditions. Treatment protocol, as written in the patent, was quite straightforward. Patients sat in a comfortable position while bombarded with Lida's synchronized stimuli for about 15 to 20 minutes, and they would receive multiple treatments over a week. The clinical documentation claimed that progressive improvement in patients' state of health with no harmful side effects. Most tellingly, this patent listed specific contraindications. Lida's treatment was not recommended for patients with infectious diseases or cancer or advanced schizophrenia or even hyperthyroidism. I mean, they suggested that Soviets had discovered discovered actually quite a lot of side effects through trial and error. This patent, hidden in plain sight in the US Patent Office, gave Western scientists an unprecedented access to a technology that would otherwise have remained in Soviet military archives. By the late 1970s, the CIA had become obsessed with Lida. Reading about it wasn't enough. They needed to possess the actual device. A direct intelligence operation to steal one from the Soviet Union would have been catastrophically risky. Instead, they orchestrated something more elegant. The agency established a front company in Canada specializing in medical equipment, a seemingly legitimate business with no obvious ties to US intelligence. Through this corporate mass, they successfully purchased an original Lida machine through official Soviet channels. Once it was safely in North America, the device was quietly transported across the border and delivered to Dr. Ross, 80, at Loma Linda VA Hospital in California. 80, who was a respected neurologist with the right security clearances, was tasked with answering the critical question: does this thing actually work? So now that they had the actual device, they could verify the claims themselves, except that this wasn't FDA approved, so they could only test this on animals. And the results, while even on animals, were quite shocking. Rabbits who were exposed to Lida's electromagnetic fields became immobile within minutes, not really unconscious, but trapped in a zombie-like state. Cats exhibited even a more remarkable response. They would often plunge directly into REM sleep. Their brains exhibited the chaotic, dreamlike patterns of REM almost immediately after exposure began, as if the machine had flipped a neural switch inside their head. Most importantly, these effects were precisely controllable. At lower power settings, animals appeared merely relaxed. As the intensity increased, they progressed through various stages of sedation. While the device was deactivated, they gradually returned to normal behavior within minutes, showing no obvious lasting effects. Dr. 80 even said that instead of taking Valium, patients can use this machine to relax and sleep. So far, Lida seems quite innocent enough, right? But there, in Los Angeles in 1981, the most interesting twist in our story happens that completely changed the way that we were looking at this machine. Dr. 80 was studying Lida when an electrician came in to repair a circuit. The electrician instantly recognized the device and was very visibly shocked. He asked if this is the North Korean brainwashing machine. 80 explained that it was actually a Russian medical device for treating insomnia and neurological conditions. The electrician said that no, it's not. I was a prisoner in North Korea after the Korean War, and they used one just like it on me. This is how he explained it. So they would position the metal plates near his head and turn on the machine. He described feeling a humming sensation and becoming extremely relaxed yet still conscious. While in this state, his captors would ask questions and provide the answers they wanted. Almost, again, like hypnosis. Later, when the Red Cross interviewed him, he found himself giving the exact same answers automatically that were told to him by his captors, even though he knew that they weren't really true. After the electrician left, 80 had to reconsider the device. What he had been studying as Soviet medical technology has been used for far more than that. Here's the mystery. If Lida was as effective as both Soviet documentation and American testing suggested, why didn't it become more widely deployed? This remains one of the most puzzling aspects to me of the story. I have a couple of theories. Firstly, I think that the pharmaceutical industry in the USA had already established massive research and production infrastructure in the 1960s. These powerful economic interests had little to no incentive to develop electromagnetic alternatives to these profitable medications. Especially if you can make one pill and then, you have to continuously produce it. On the other hand, you have a machine that you buy once and that can last you for 30 or 40 years. Doesn't make economic sense for the pharmaceutical industry to even consider these options. Secondly, and I think this probably is more valid, that both superpowers, Soviet Union and USA, may have continued development under deeper classification, and they would not have wanted to go into public hands. The declassified CIA memos actually talk about Lida and the sustained interest in psychic communication. There was a whole project that was labeled Stargate for investigating the potential of psychic phenomena in military and domestic intelligence applications. It is entirely possible that Lida itself was just the publicly acknowledged tip of a much larger research iceberg with more advanced applications that were developed under stricter secrecy. We don't know what happened with it, really. Why wasn't it widespread? But Lida's legacy actually lives on in modern technologies, but with critical differences. We have transcranial magnetic simulation, which is now an FDA-approved treatment for depression. Audiovisual entrainment devices help people meditate and improve sleep. And we have a whole new field called electroceuticals, which represent an emerging field where electrical simulation replaces drugs for certain conditions. The story of Lida makes me wonder what other technologies might exist that blur the line between treatment and control. I mean, as science is advancing into the domain of the mind, we must wonder, like, what are the other devices and techniques and methods that we don't know about, that still remain hidden in classified archives or disguised as medical equipment? I mean, their true capabilities and histories unknown to the public, and perhaps they will remain unknown forever. But at least we know about this machine, we know about Lida, and the fact that this was actually used as a tranquilizer and, even more importantly, as an interrogation device, both at the same time. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and if you want me to cover some more interesting topics, you're welcome to suggest them down in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.